And a very good morning, and here we are back again. And those of you who have got all sorts of little gizmos on your phone, it will pop up. Mirador is live. And with me, I've got my pal, Max, my right-hand man, who actually, he understands all this nonsense much better than I do. And I'm teaching him to be as good a talker.
At the moment, I'm not a great talker. I'm a little bit nervous. It's my first time.
Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. There are only a bunch of people that yell and scream at me. They won't scream at you, Max. Anyway, Max is a student, and he has joined us from what's the college you're at?
DV8 Sussex in Brighton.
Right, which is almost a vocational college, isn't it? It actually looks more at the practical side of things than it does at the academic.
Yeah, it does. So the courses are like media studies, music, event management's next year, games. Obviously, they have English and maths in case you fail that. But yeah, no, it's a very hands-on technical college. It's good. I enjoy it. I'm so glad I picked it.
Good. Well, and we've got another Threy, I think, is our other student who comes on a Monday, but a Monday was a holiday, so he was able to stay at home. Lucky guy. Max drew the short straw. He's had to come in this week, and he'll be in next week, and so on. But he's performing some great, useful stuff for us, and we're grateful that we've got him. He's a clever young man, and what we can give him is the experience of, for instance, this is the first time he's really sat in front of a camera on a live program. So he's got that experience to take with him when he goes out into the great wide world. And I suppose really, Max, one of the things that is a great difficulty today is for every job that's going, and we're not just talking about media, we're almost talking about anything. For every job that's going is 200 people who are after that one job, which makes the market very tough.
Yeah, I applied for like so many jobs. I just couldn't get a single one. And luckily, this media placement happened here, and now I've got a job out of it. So I'm very, very lucky and grateful for this.
There we go. So anyway, the rough and tumble of local and private television is now Max's bag for a little while. And as long as he doesn't get too bruised, he should be okay. All right. Well, first of all, just for those of you who were tuned in yesterday, Janet Barr, Councillor Janet Barr from the Town Council, was on, and she is very keen on developing this sort of practical education. She's quite right. As she says, academia isn't the be-all and end-all of everything. It's just as well it's not, because I was thick as two short planks, both at school and at university. And a lot of people will say, well, you still are, Keith, but so what? As long as one makes one's way in the world, as it were. But the important thing is to pick up skills that are practical. So that is, Janet is pushing very hard for programs of that sort, and she's getting somewhere. But of course, it's always very slow. And the fact that our friend Louis, who is the mainstream placement officer, is he at your university, your college? Yeah, and he approached us and he said, "Would you mind taking a student or two?" And we said no, and we've established a very good relationship with this college. I will say, just as a reminder, Louis, if you watch this, because I'm sure that you will, since Max is on this morning, is that your principal said he would quite like to chat about some of the things that you don't teach at your college that perhaps you should, to prepare people for the great outdoors. So I'm waiting. And I'm very happy to share whatever limited knowledge I've got. So don't hesitate to actually get on the phone or the email and say, right, Keith, what ideas have you got? Because as you probably we reported back to you, our ideas are pretty damn crazy. But the fact is that if we were ordinary, we would be swallowed. We cannot compete with the BBC. We cannot compete with ITV. We can't compete with Netflix. what we can do is we can offer an alternative that is intriguing to a limited number of people, and that's what we're trying to do. My nose was tickling. Right. Okay. Now, one of the things that seeing things through the eyes of other people, through the eyes of babes, they say, but in this case, no. Max took a look at, first of all, both he and Craig came into this hotel, to the Hart Hotel, which is where we're broadcasting from. And as you can see, it is very ancient. There's nothing fake about these beams. They are all from the 1600s, and in fact earlier, and in some instances. So there's nothing fake about this at all. They both said that they got overwhelmed with the feeling and the idea that this was so ancient and it got so much history. So I said, well, take a look at it and see what you can do in terms of making little programs. So let's ask Max how he's going along with his program making.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. I've finished one documentary and it's going to be going out soon, hopefully this week on the channel. It's called Hidden Beauty. It's about Lewis and just all the great spots to go in Lewis. So went over to Lewis Downs. I went up in the castle, just down the Twittons as well, and just filming. And I'm going to broadcast what it's like to be in Lewis. And hopefully it brings attention to this small town with surprisingly massive history. Well, I had no idea until you started telling me about the history of Lewis, and even the building we're in now. The building we're in now is where the American Revolution was started in 1776 by Thomas Paine. I was researching him yesterday, actually, and he was the one who wrote the book The Rights of Man, which I didn't know, which was very fascinating that I'm in the same building as someone as important as the person who wrote the Rights of Man and started the American Revolution. That's fascinating to me.
Now, here's a little story about Tom Paine that many people don't know, and is told to me by the late man who is a great friend of mine, and because I'm getting old, I've forgotten his name, Tony Burton. Tony Burton was a curmudgeon around town, but he was also at one stage the landlord of the Crown Hotel. And it is passed down from landlord to landlord at the Crown that Tom Paine was barred from the Crown because he would go in and he would button anybody at the bar and start to talk to them about the rights of man, which we think is terribly important today. They just thought that Tom Paine was a bore, and they started to leave. And the landlord said, look here, Tom, if you're going to keep on boring people and they're going to leave and I'm losing all my customers, I'm going to lose you instead. So they barred him. He barred him. So Tom came over to the White Hart, where he wasn't barred and was able to carry on with his ideas. And as a consequence, a revolution was born. So there you are. Sometimes being kicked out of a pub isn't a bad thing.
And probably the biggest revolution in history, I would say.
Well, in fact, I think that you're with some merit. Yeah. I mean, there are revolutions that perhaps had more impact militarily. But one thinks of the Russian Revolution, but and even our own Civil War. But I think that you're absolutely right. In the long-standing is we now have the United States of America, and which in some ways was the creation of Tom Paine. And his creation was right here where we're sitting. And it gives you a little bit of a curl up the back spine. Incidentally, Gary Toynton joined us very briefly there for a moment. Good morning, Gary. Glad that you're tapping in to make sure that we're at work. Okay, so what other sort of areas of Lewis did you start to open your eyes that you think will open the eyes of perhaps people who live here who don't know the town as well as they think?
So I went over to, oh gosh, I've forgotten the name of it now. Just down the road, there's a big cliff, big white rock cliffs.
Right. Well, it is called the Cliff.
Oh,
yeah, the area is called the Cliff.
Yeah, creative. That was, I filmed there. That was probably my favorite spot I filmed. I really enjoyed going up there. I'll probably go down there again at some point just for fun. Very nice down there. Again, the history of Lewis, just the building across the street, the castle is 1,000 years old, which is fascinating in itself. And the museum, I went in as well to do some filming, and that's quite interesting as well. There's lots of artifacts.
Right, so this is all reflected in your documentary, which will be shown later this week. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll look forward to that. In fact, now that Max is back, he's the tech giant. He will make sure that our system will be able to show that. Now, you said that you'd completed one, and then my remit to the people that work with us is really to come up with your ideas, and as long as they don't actually get us into trouble with the law, such as libel or whatever, do your thing. So what is the next one project you've got on the block?
The next one is Forgotten Stories. I'm not too sure on the name, but that's what it is for now. We're contacting what's her name? The MP for East Sussex.
MP for Maria Caldwell.
Maria
Caulfield, sorry, yeah.
Contacting her over a story most people missed, actually. It was a story from The Guardian. And it turns out that the NHS was putting do not resuscitate orders on people with learning difficulties. And surprisingly, 40 to 50%, I can't remember the exact percentage, somewhere around there, 40 to 50% of all people who died of COVID had learning difficulties, the ones who had do not resuscitate orders. So that's interesting. I wonder if that had anything to do with increased deaths. And where does learning difficulties start and begin? Because you could say dyslexia, it is a learning difficulty, but what's the spectrum? Where does it stop? Does it stop at people with autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, or is it only people with Down syndrome? I don't know. It's just horrifying that the government would do that.
Well, I mean, let's be careful, because this was a newspaper article and it's alleged. So our query to Maria Caulfield is can she shed any light on it and perhaps give a response or share our concern or whatever.
It was widely reported in the media. I hope it's not true. I really do. I really hope it's not a true story.
Well, it's normally, despite the fact that people say it's all the fault of the media, everything has a shred of truth. But one of the interesting things is that Max is dyslexic. And I have to say that he has buckled down, and in making his documentaries, one wouldn't know. You are doing a good job. And
one wouldn't know until they saw me read.
Well, it's a bit like me, nobody knows I've got Parkinson's until I stagger. But then people think I'm drunk.
Are you?
Oh, that's the secret. It is of concern is that if our society is starting to become Orwellian and deciding who shall be given treatment and who not, and I think it's something that needs an answer. It's been left fallow for almost a year, and Max spotted it and said, "Can I go after this?" And I said yes. And in fact, we because of one thing or another, we haven't actually sent off our letter to Maria Caulfield yet, but we will over the next 24 hours and ask if she can give us some information and a response to it. Right. Okay. Now there are one or two other things that are happening. Is one of the things that I've noticed this morning and has really pleased me, because I have said that PR, public relations, has become a flim-flam operation. In other words, whereas 20 years ago, before we had the internet and so on, is the idea of PR is to reflect the worth of a company, good, bad, or indifferent. Yes, they tried to put a good spin on it, but at least it was honest and decent. And now, I mean, you would think, for instance, I'll give you an example, is the banks and finance companies have been putting out stuff all right throughout COVID about how much they care and how much they're trying to help and so on and so forth, which for most of them is a bunch of BS, is they haven't at all. It's easy to say those sort of things because it makes them look good. Flim flam. Now, it would appear that I am not the only one concerned about this flim flam.
Well, it's like when Apple talk about social justice and how they support equal rights for all, but then run sweatshops in China where Apple literally have nets in the Foxconn factories to stop people from when they jump out of the windows because they're so horribly treated. They have nets now to catch the people trying to kill themselves.
Wow.
And so they can continue working, but they care. They care about social justice and equal rights for all, except the Chinese slave labor. It is
flim flam.
Yeah, flim flam.
Anyway, there is legislation pending now that it is going to be illegal for companies to have fake reviews written about their products. So if you read somebody says these baked beans are wonderful because they actually cleanse the system and they are good and healthy, they had better be good and healthy and do all the things that the makers claim, or they're going to be in trouble. They can't say it. They can't have people like you and I, the broadcasters and storytellers, spinning a tale that says their product is absolutely wonderful. Now it has to be accurate and true, or and the penalties are quite severe, economically severe. Anyway, you can be fined quite a lot of money. One of the things I think that we, as an independent media company, will do is keep an eye on. Is quite often what happens is legislation has penalties attached, but then there is nobody to actually make sure that the legislation is imposed and that the penalties are applied. I mean, that happened a lot through COVID, for instance. The reason that we're getting upset with the Prime Minister is because he actually was caught. There were thousands that weren't, and mainly because you don't have enough coppers to be able to dump on everybody who broke the rules. So it's one of the things that you have to watch out about. Hey, that's great. Legislation is going to be applied, but who is going to actually make sure that the offenders are caught? Right. Now, throughout our 2 hours, Max, what we do is just take a little bit of breath. So I think what we'll do is we'll go to Susan Harris's pictures because I hadn't been using them recently. These are not new pictures, and she sent me an email the other day saying that she's doing a lot more. But let's catch our breath, and then we can get on with other things. So here's Susan just for a few seconds. Okay, well, those scenes, I think, reflect what Max has just been saying, that Lewis is a very interesting place, a very nice town, and rather placid by the look of things. You wouldn't believe it, it's bloody past.
How long have you lived here?
I've lived here since 1990.
Why did you move here? What attracted you to Lewis?
Well, strangely enough, it's one of those things that happens in your youth. When I was your age, when I was much younger, I was about 14, I guess. I lived in the Midlands in Sutton Coldfield, and a friend of mine had relatives in Eastbourne. Now, bear in mind that we went too long after the war, so going on holiday wasn't quite the way it was now. You didn't go and jump onto a plane and go to Spain. What you did was you went to the seaside. And here was an opportunity. Yeah, like Blackpool, but Eastbourne in its day was, well, it still is, was a resort that people came herring down to. And they said, let's cycle from Eastbourne to from Birmingham or nearby down to Eastbourne. And believe me, it was longer than we both thought. We were pretty saddle sore by the time we finished. But as we were coming,
journey. Oh my god!
So, yeah,
how many miles is that?
It's a couple of hundred, I think. Anyway, as we sort of approached Lewes, there was a sign to Lewes, and my friend said darkly, "Ah, that's the hanging town." Now, Lewes has always had a reputation of being having a dark side to it. That we hanged people, and indeed we did. Many of them right across the road from us here were the bathtub murders, Hague, the onion pie murders. They all were tried and found guilty here, and although some of them were taken elsewhere to be hung, there were quite a few in Lewes prison. And it was as late as 1858 or 59, I think, that the last lady was hanged in public outside. And she was the onion pie murderer. She fancied her husband's friend. Was somebody trying to get in?
No. The last man to ever be hung in the UK was right here, literally right there. I'm looking at where he was hung. And the last woman was actually in Horsham, just up the road from here.
Right. So we have here a pretty dark history when it comes to actually stringing people up by the neck until dead. This lady, the onion pie murderer, I think her name was Sarah something, had given a dark spirit to Lewes. It was known as the hanging town. But also, right up until recently, and if you go into a pub here now, you will get some people who have lived in Lewes all their life, and they will say, witchcraft. Yes, it's witchcraft still in Lewes, they'll say. So it had got a sort of a dark spirit. So when he said, this is that's the hanging town, we didn't actually go through Lewes, but as far as I can remember, we went on down to Eastbourne. So in 1990, when I came back from Northern Ireland, I was looking for somewhere to live. I remembered Lewes, and I came.
Hang on a minute, let me get this straight. You cycled past Lewes. Your friend said, "Oh, that's the hanging town," and you said, "Oh, that's where I want to live."
Well, eventually, that's true. Is anywhere that's got a dark spirit. You have to understand me, Max. As I say about my time in Northern Ireland, is we journalists says when a bomb goes off, we run towards it, whereas everybody else is running away from it. So I've always actually gone in with my chin, led with my chin. Is if somewhere is interesting, dive in. You don't want to go anywhere that's dull. So you've got to do one, right? It's a hanging town. I've got to live there.
Oh, hang on a minute. So when you came here as a child, not public, but hanging was still a thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it was 1956 that the last hanging took place, if I'm not mistaken.
And the last hanging was Lewes Crown Court, and that was the acid bomb murder.
Well, but one of the hangings that I remember, and once again I'm struggling with the names, is a very controversial hanging because it was two men were over a station roof. I'm not sure whether it was in London or whether it was in Brighton, but and the police went after them. And the older one said to the younger one, let him have it. And the younger one said that he all right, Scottish football. We don't wish to know about Scottish football. The younger ones fired and killed the policeman. Now, that was an immediate hanging offence if you killed a policeman. But the argument was that what the older man had meant was let him have the gun, not shoot him. But the court interpreted that he meant kill him. So the older chap was hanged, and the younger one was sent to life imprisonment. And the people felt that the odds were wrong, and that started a move towards doing away with. And I think that the last woman was Ruth Ellis, if I'm not mistaken, who she killed her lover in a mad fit of rage. But one of the great cases, and Richard Attenborough has made a movie of it called 10 Rillington Place. Rillington Place, I've been down to Rillington Place. I've taken a look, and the bulldozers actually tore down the houses that were where the murders took place. But there was a guy called Christie, John Reginald Christie, who murdered about 10 or 12 prostitutes and hid them under the floorboards and so on. I mean, it was a remarkable case. But he managed to persuade the law that his neighbor, Timothy Evans, had committed some of these murders, and Timothy Evans was hanged for it, despite protesting, no, it's not me. So once again, a very controversial hanging where people thought that there might have been a miscarriage of justice. So those sort of things were floating around in my boyhood.
I had a somewhat controversial view on the death penalty. I do believe, in theory, it's good. I think it's a good idea, but I don't think we should, because the government can't fix a pothole. They can't take someone's life, literally. They are so useless.
A very good argument.
It's like, in theory, I support it. In reality, the government's useless.
Yeah.
No matter who's in charge.
Actually, this topic did come up in with I shouldn't say a group of friends because I can't remember who they were, but we were talking about it, and somebody actually asked whether I'd seen the movie The Green Mile. Have you seen The Green Mile?
I heard of it, but I haven't watched it now.
Well, it's essentially about execution in the deep south of the United States, and that how the sadists love to execute people, and that how it could all go wrong. I mean, Tom Hanks stars in it. It's quite a powerful movie. But the fact of the matter is, when you say if they can't fix the pothole, can they handle the hanging? It's very apt. I think the whole raison d'etre is the reason we don't execute people now. Yeah. Is that essentially what we're. Come on in if you're at the door. You're welcome. I think people are a little nervous about coming in to see us at the moment. They won't be, of course. They'll get used to the fact that we're here and we're broadcasting, and that now welcome.
Oh. How often is this show live? This long form discussion, 2 hours to an hour to 2 hours.
5 days a week.
Oh, wow! Every day.
Every day.
Yeah. Okay.
And what we want to do is to convey what's happening on a day-to-day basis. And some of it will be important, some of it won't. Some of it will just be the man next door. But we like to think that it will be interesting enough over a period of 2 hours with different things. I mean, it's a whole variety of things. The next item that I want to talk to you about, because I know you've got an interest in cars, haven't you?
Right.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, the next item that I'm going to raise is, once again, your expertise is expected. What we were expecting this morning, and he hasn't turned up yet. But then it is 10:15. Is Stuart Dolby, because Stuart is investigating on a constant basis the energy crisis and what's being done and what's not. And once again, Stuart is scathing about what the government has done, and he reflects not only some of the thinking, but some of the background that is obscured. And so one of the things that this program will try to do is, from time to time, it'll bring in the experts. From time to time, we will actually, in the next couple of days, hopefully, we'll go to our correspondent, Jane Watkins, in Hastings. We do say that we're interested in the county as such. In fact, we're interested anywhere and anything. But Jane can let us know what's going on in Hastings. Each day we march into this town and we glibly talk about Hastings. Do you know what's going on in Hastings today? No, nor me. Right. So Jane will keep us up to date from time to time. But there is nothing formal about it. You won't find that this will happen on a Monday and that on a Wednesday. It happens as it happens. And it's a forum for all of us to be able to do it. Sally, the wife of the owner, said yesterday, she said, I was standing outside, Keith, and she said, I was listening to you, and how the hell do you keep talking? I have no idea. It's the only thing I'm good for. It's the only thing I'm good for, is to keep talking. And if some of it is utter rubbish, so be it. But let's get some utter rubbish out there so that we've got reasons to discuss and debate and not hide our light under a bushel.
Well, right. Speaking of discussion and debate, I do want to speak to Stuart about this, about energy and coal power plants specifically. I mean, as you'll come to find out, I tend to take the controversial opinion on many things. But one of the things I want to talk to Stuart about later is I think we should bring back the coal mines. I really do. And I'll talk to him and discuss about why I think that.
Well, that's a very interesting point of view, and that's the sort of controversial view that we look for. Is everybody is totally against the coal mines? Is there a case for bringing some of them back?
Yes, absolutely.
And it's all very well, and as Stuart says, it's all very well for doing away, and so you want to do away with fossil fuels, but before you actually do away totally with them, make sure that everything you say that you can put in place instead, you can put in place. And at the moment, the government is struggling. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about a local government with green policies, or whether you're talking about international government. The promises that they've made are not fulfillable. And so we've got to look at alternatives. So here we have a young man. Now, he's a young man, right? Not an old buffer like me. So you salt and pepper, you can find out what the youngsters are thinking. And here Max says, bring back the coal mines.
I am not the typical youngster, I will say that. No one my age particularly agrees with some of the things I say.
Well, good for you. Good for you.
But I stand out and take
that's why we like you as part of this television operation, is you're not at all like everybody else. All right, I'm going to let's just play. It's just so that I can get my mouth working again, because but this is my favorite little break, and it just shows once again the gorgeous nature of the town in which we live. So there we are. Max went to get me a little drink of Lucozade.
He's going to be going up the walls.
I've always been a little bit afraid of those sort of drinks. And who we got there? Good morning.
Morning.
Oh, hi. Now, come and stick your nose in, because just over our shoulder, because one of the regulars here at the White Hart is this gentleman who is working closely with Councillor Barr. And just very quickly, because we'll talk to you one morning in more detail. Very quickly, tell me what you're talking to Councillor Barr about.
Oh,
let's see your face.
I've lost my children to social services, like so many other fathers and mothers in the country, most unfairly. And she's going to help me, in her own words, get my children back. And I'm very, very grateful. Absolutely.
That's great to hear that. That you want your kids back.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it's unbearable. That's what it is.
Yeah, I grew up in I am growing up in a single parent household. I can understand.
You need both parents,
definitely.
And where social services cannot be seen to be social engineering, that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah,
exactly what they're doing. So,
yeah. What's your name, by the way?
My name's Ollie.
Ollie
Wilson.
Ollie Wilson. Nice to meet you.
Yes, my friend.
There we go. We've got some unity of thought and purpose. Hopefully, these things, they may be just casual conversations, but they will stir people to realize that these things go on in our society. There are too many people who simply think that we're squeaky clean, that everything in the garden is hunky-dory and we've got a decent council and all the rest of it, until you actually come down to where you find people who are affected in a negative way by these things. So here are two gentlemen. Now, I have to tell you that Ollie is also a very talented musician, and that as we go along, one of the things about sound or television is sound you have to be very careful about. Pictures are quite easy in many ways, but sound you have to be a bit careful about. So we're waiting to really make sure, because this is Max's bag, that we can get the sound right before Ollie comes along with his guitar. But he will provide from time to time a little bit of a musical interlude, and we're looking forward to that, Ollie.
Brilliant. Cheers, man. Well, excellent. I mean, all the best. What an awesome fella, warrior. I'll leave you guys to it for the moment. Cheers. Thank you. Brilliant.
Yeah, there you are. So that little by chat is exactly what we want. Drop by, have a little chat.
Do you drop by and have a little chat if you feel like it? You're watching now.
Absolutely. Wander by. We're here, and how are we going on time? By the way, it's 10:24. Would you believe that even though it takes us a few minutes just to switch studios or switch software, is that we've been going already an hour. And with some of the things that we've talked about, it's amazing how the time slips by. And people say, 2 hours, what are you going to talk about for 2 hours? Well, we've been talking about for 1 hour already. We've been live 38 minutes. That's right. Yeah, and we were 10 minutes late getting on, so that's 48 minutes. Yeah, not far. So join us in a minute, because I want to talk about cars.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll talk. What do you want to talk about? Oh,
I will. I'll bring you up to snuff in a minute. Let's. I don't have enough things for to actually fill in, but here are some of the silly things that we've done in the past. Well, here we are back again after that little Philip.
I love that little lion clip. That's funny. I like that. You as a lion. Are you wearing the same scarf as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it never very far away from me. All right, now, Max, I know that you are something of a car expert, and I just said that I wanted to talk to you about driverless cars. Apparently, there is legislation being passed at this moment as we speak, and it's not something that has been headlined, is that driverless cars, as long as it doesn't go over 37 miles per hour, is you can get into your driverless car and away your car will go, and you'll be able to read a newspaper or do your text online and so on. All the things that you can't do while you're driving a car at the moment, you will be able to if it's driverless. Now, I find it difficult to my mind. Remember that I was born in an era when cars were my actually first car is the road regulations were such that it was an Austin 7, and it was old enough that when you saw the major road ahead and you knew you got to stop, you saw the stop sign, you started to pump the brakes, and within about 50 yards you would stop. Now, of course, it wouldn't be allowed on the roads today anywhere near, but in those days that was it was all jolly good fun. Now we are faced with an era of driverless cars. Let's start at the beginning. Let's go from a position of ignorance. What on earth is a driverless car?
Okay, so driverless car, the idea of it is there's a car with no steering wheel. Elon Musk is working on this right now with Tesla. He wants to start the company Robotaxis, which is quite fascinating. So you can just hire a car, it drives you somewhere, you get out, it drives itself back to the depot for the taxis. But driverless cars technically already exist with the Teslas right now, all the different models. You can have full self-driving. What that means is the car has about 20 sensors all around it, recording everything that goes on. So it can see the lines in the road, all the cars, pedestrians, bins, signs, traffic lights now it can stop at. And it's only recommended for motorway use, but you can use it on regular roads like the one outside, just town use. So we already have it, but the next step is just removing the steering wheel completely, which I reckon will happen within the next 5 years.
Right. Now, let me get this straight. I go out and I go to my car. What modification will it be? Will I have to buy a special car, or can I then modify my car?
No, it's a completely brand new car.
Right. Okay. And those cars are on sale now?
Full self-driving is on sale, yeah, and it has been for the past 5 years, but cars with no steering wheels aren't on sale.
Right. So some of these cars that we're talking about where you can read the newspaper won't have a steering wheel.
Yeah.
You can't take back control. You're in total... Once you get into the car, that's it. You're in the car, and until you actually get out of the car, you can't actually control it. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
No steering wheel at all.
Right. So that's where I can actually chat to my true love as I go along. Hello, darling. Wonderful to see you. Or Will, looking forward to seeing you. Whoops, just missed something. Don't worry, the car is in control.
Yeah, you can be on the phone. You can read the newspaper. You can go to sleep if you really want.
Have you any idea how much these cars are going to cost?
I wouldn't say that expensive, actually, because we already have full self-driving. You can buy a full self-driving Tesla Model 3. The base model with full self-driving is £40,000 for full self-driving. That's how much it costs right now, today.
Right. Come in a bit, because otherwise we'll have our good friend Kevin Kramer on saying, I've cut your head off again. You need to just come in a little bit or perhaps, as you said, let's move this around a little bit. Yeah, just so that you're seen fully on screen. And the background is so lovely, it doesn't really matter if we swing it around. It's very historic. Okay, so I've got my carless or driverless car outside. I go and I get in. What do I do?
You say I'm assuming you would use the speakers in it. You say, car drive me to home. And if you have home mapped on the car already, it'll just drive you home from wherever you are in the country. Or you would say, car, drive me to RH167LF. Any postcode, just drive you there. That's, I'm assuming, how it would turn out.
Right. So it's going to be a bit like whatever you call it, a Siri or something on the computer.
Yeah.
Where you say, computer, find this. You'll get into your car and say, car, drive me to.
Yeah. So you say, Siri, phone, mum.
Right.
And you would say that to the car, drive home.
Right. All right. Then it gets onto the road, but there's still there are lots of cars that aren't driverless. How does it perform with those cars? How does it interact?
Excellent. I don't know why it's only limited to 37 with this new legislation, because Tesla is now the most popular car manufacturer. And most of them have full self-driving. Do you know how many deaths have been caused by full self-driving? Less than 5. Okay. How many deaths have been caused by real people driving? Thousands. Yeah. Thousands. Full self-driving is 1,000,000 times safer than regular people driving, because people don't have the same reaction times as a robot.
Oh, but my life as a spy was very much. I was very much James Bond.
Yeah,
that made me seem like a very macho spy. What are the spies going to do if they're not driving their own Aston Martins to try and catch Goldfinger or whatever?
I don't know. I don't know. I'll never own a full self-driving car, because I'm a car enthusiast. I love cars. I love driving cars. So I will never own one where it's just got no personality to it, in my opinion.
Yeah. But quite seriously, Max, I mean, a lot of people tell you that they enjoy driving a vehicle. Are you going to find a resistance from those people that think that getting behind the wheel and doing everything themselves, whether it's an Aston Martin or whether it's a Mini Morris, there's going to be a certain amount of resistance to cars that you actually don't drive?
If I'm brutally honest, which I will be, I think people tend to be lazy. I think they will go for it. I really do. People have said this about technology all the time. Oh, I'll never own a phone. When it first came out, it shouldn't be a part of me. I will never own one. But then they end up doing. Everyone has a phone now. I don't know anyone apart from my nan who doesn't. No, even my grandparents own phones. I don't know a single person who doesn't own one. And I do think that's eventually what will be with full self-driving cars.
Right.
Everyone's saying now, no, it's a bad idea. And then 30, 40 years down the line, everyone's going to be like, why did we ever drive?
Yeah. Yeah. In other words, it'll take time, but all change. It's right.
Genuinely, I think you'll see full self-driving cars within your lifetime.
Right. Now, this legislation is going to change the highway code. How long will it take to actually institute? Because it's all very well to say something's going before Parliament, but the new laws do take time to kick in.
I don't know. The government doesn't tend to be quick on things. I don't know, but they're illegal right now. I think this new law, that I haven't heard it, but what it seems like is that they're trying to make it legal, which I'm not adverse to. I think it's a lot safer than real people driving. But I don't know. I'm not quite sure.
So there is still a certain amount of second and see.
Yeah, I haven't personally seen the legislation. I've only heard about it when you mentioned it, so this is all new to me.
Well, in fact, I hadn't heard about it either, and I suppose the fact that it was in the news this morning means very much that it is brand new. So your comment on it is as valid as anybody else's. One other thing about because you said that you'll go back to fossil fuels. Very much electric cars you see around now. How is progress being made in electric versus internal combustion?
So I've actually done a lot of research on this topic.
Good. Okay. Well, let's get the benefit of it.
So combustion-powered cars are your typical petrol, diesel engines, and the batteries for these new electric cars are extremely bad for the environment. Hybrid cars are proven to actually be worse than regular combustion power, because hybrid is you have the engine and you have the batteries. You bring the two worst things together, and it's hybrids are actually worse than regular combustion powered cars. The reason for that is the batteries. The batteries are, I'm going to bore you a little bit with this, but the batteries are lithium-ion batteries, which are used, they say, some companies say, oh, we get them from Australia, but that's not really true. That most of it comes from child slave labor in China and the Dominican Republic of Congo in Africa. These children are mining the lithium-ion batteries, and they're just dying because it's an extremely toxic substance. These little kids are going blind and like getting all sorts of horrible cancers to make your eco-friendly cars for you so you can care about the environment.
Right. Did I understand that Stuart said at one stage when he was here chatting to us that lithium could also be found in Cornwall?
It can be found in most places, but unfortunately the places where it's most found is countries where human rights aren't exactly a thing.
So in other words, mining it is much easier than it would be here. Yeah, right. Okay, well, that resolves some of the mysteries, I think. I think just very quickly, what we will do is, although this isn't a news hour, I think the sort of things that you should be looking at throughout the day. Let's just take a look at the newspapers again.
I haven't done that today, actually.
The BBC News headlines. Well, you can make a comment here. Here we go. Here are the newspaper headlines. And incidentally, if you're thinking of getting out today, do. It's almost a great day for a picnic if you've got the time. And if I was you, I would get the food before it goes roaring out of everybody's pocketbook. But here are the newspaper headlines, right? I'm truly sorry. The Metro. Boris says, it didn't occur to me that I'm breaking my own COVID laws by going to a party or calling for a party in Downing Street. I suppose that there is a certain element of, yes, perhaps he could be telling the truth. But as a young man, what's your view on the Boris saga at the moment, Max?
Well, to be honest, politicians lie all the time. It's no different. It's one rule for us and another rule for them on pretty much everything. And as someone who, I will say, I didn't particularly follow the lockdowns that strictly, I don't particularly care. It doesn't particularly bother me. I think people should have been able to do whatever they want. People have free will and should do no matter what. I don't think the government should have legislated that you should be locked in your house in the first place. They broke their own rules, surprisingly. But I don't think it's as big as a deal as everyone is making it out to be.
Well, I mean, some people have said, why get Boris to take his eye off the ball? We've got so many things to worry about. Very interesting to see what goes on over the next 24 hours, where at the moment everybody is, well, the Guardian is a man without shame. Wow, PM savaged over parties. The Times, Tory MPs told to block inquiry into Johnson. Now, this is where the shenanigans at the Westminster Parliament start to worry me a little bit, because it doesn't matter whether I approve or don't approve of this action. The fact of the matter is they change the rules to suit themselves far too easily, in my view, and that shouldn't be allowed.
I think that's the main issue, but politicians have been doing that since the beginning of time. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, but I really don't think that's ever going to change. Certainly not in my lifetime.
Well, it's interesting that you should say that, because I spoke to the mayor of New Haven not too long ago. She's a young lady and an interesting lady. And I said, people are always calling for reform in government. Now, as a young lady, she said, I doubt if I will see reform in my lifetime. She got another 40, 50, 60 years left in her. That is depressing to think that there won't be reform in that period of time. But I understand what she's saying, is that people don't want reform if it's going to turn over a good thing.
Yeah. I think what we need to do is vote people. I don't even think voting people in is going to help anything. No matter really who you vote for, they're just going to do the same thing as the last person. I think the Tory party and the Labour Party are very similar. They're backed by pretty much the same people. What's the difference? I will never vote for either of them. I used to say I would have voted for the Conservative Party, but I won't anymore. I will vote third party. I'm 18 now. I can vote up in the next election. And I'm going to vote third party. I think the best thing to do is vote in populist candidates, not voting in the right or the left. Anyone who's a populist, anyone who loves this country and thinks it can be great, and anyone who hasn't been in politics their whole lives. I think one of the worst things is people just go through the party machine for decades, and they go through the party machine for decades, and they all come out the same.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think we'll take another little break. You have no idea how wearing it is gazing at this screen. It's not so much that we don't want to carry on, but these things can be hypnotic. So let's see if there's. We'll perhaps go back to one that we showed a little earlier. What's that one? What's that one?
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, let's find out. Yes, you may have heard us just chatting there for a moment because I suddenly noticed that on that one the mic wasn't muted. At least it didn't look as if it was. Here we are back again, and Max is. This is slightly new to Max because he is a student, but I can remember when I was his age being thrown in the deep end. By golly, it's maybe a bit worrying and a bit frightening, but it's exhilarating and exciting that you've been talking live on television, and particularly modern television, because you have no idea who's watching or listening.
No, I think I've done pretty well for my first time doing this.
Yeah, not bad at all. some very good views, one or two controversial views, which is what we want. Don't want yes people. Yes, sir. No, sir. 3 bags full, sir. Right. Now, just very briefly, Max, could you explain the system that we use to bring pictures to people? Because people only see television as television. And in fact, this is, I don't want you to talk about the complexities of it, but generally speaking, we pump this out through a computer, right?
Yeah. And
how does that work?
So we're just broadcasting to you through YouTube, wherever you're watching, YouTube or Facebook. We just got a very standard laptop. It works pretty well. I will say it's quite unusual what we use for recording. Streamlabs. Usually that's what YouTubers use or gaming people use. So to see it in a media company, I was kind of surprised actually, but it's very good software. How much? It's not that expensive, is it?
No.
How much is it?
I think it's about £20 a month.
Yeah, it's not too bad. We get 50 hours from it a month, which isn't great, but it certainly does the job. StreamYard overall is a pretty good platform.
Now, one of the things, one of the tasks I've given you is to see whether we can expand the platforms that we can go to. We talk about platforms, but anybody who's probably over 50 is saying, what the hell are they talking about? The only platform I know is you get on Trainer. So when we're talking about platforms, what do we mean? And secondly, okay, there are the regular ones like Facebook and YouTube, but what other sort of platforms are there available to broadcasters like us?
I think for broadcasters like us, I think Instagram would be a good one. Actually, I'm not sure if you can do Instagram lives for this long, but if we can, Instagram would be great for this. Twitter is very political, also not a very nice platform to be on there. Have you ever been on? You're on Twitter?
I think that we are on Twitter. It's not one that I've ever paid a great deal of attention to.
Yeah, I used to be on Twitter, and I'm glad I got off. I will say, horrible social media platform. Reddit's pretty all right, depending where you're going. Reddit's an interesting one. You have these subreddits, so it'll be r/ and then whatever the topic, literally any topic you want, there's one for you. You can search it up. So r/cars is popular, r/news, all sorts. It ranges from political to cartoons to gaming. It covers everything. So that's quite interesting. Twitch is pretty good. I'm struggling.
I was interested because to me, if somebody offers you a platform to speak through, but with Twitch, I took a look at it, and it seemed to me to say we're not going to give you the full benefit until you've got over 1,000 viewers. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're very strict, and you can get banned from Twitch so easily. If you say like anything political, you're gone. So Twitch isn't, yeah. For a media company, Twitch would not be the place to be actually.
Now, is when people regulate like that, I mean, how do they tell? How do they tell if you've said something political?
Someone will report it, or if you're a known channel, there'll be a moderator going through and policing what you say.
Right.
And if you say something that they don't like, they get rid of you. So if you say something, I can't say it because we'll get taken off. But no, there are plenty of things that you'll get taken off for. People got taken off for talking about what was going on with Jeffrey Epstein and Epstein Island. Even things like that, which are valid news and people should be talking about, people have been taken off for. But the main ones we use, as you're probably watching from, is YouTube. Where do we get most of our demographics from?
We get We have a lot of feedback. We have a lot of feedback from Instagram. We have a lot of feedback from Facebook. They give us analytics. We don't get as much from YouTube as I anticipated. But because we've got Mirador Television Lewis and Lewis Television Mirador, onto our emails, we get an awful lot of people who will make comment on some of the things we talked about. But that's the only reason that we know that they're watching. Now, it does seem to me that the other area that we quite often will say to people, please share this, and they share it. But if they shared it to, say, 20 people, there's no way of knowing that they shared it to 20 people. All you know is that they've shared it.
Yeah. Well, your comments are greatly appreciated to whoever's watching. Comment on anything. We will read every comment. I'll personally look at the comments of this for all of them. See what you guys are saying. Certainly.
That's great. The one of the things that there was a big row lawsuit about 6 months ago, in which the local newspapers in Manchester, there is a little network of small stations like this. Well, not like this, but small stations in Manchester. And what the station had been doing is using the old newspaper trick. Now, newspapers always said that what they did was they took their known circulation and multiplied by 3, on the basis that if you take one newspaper into a house, it's likely that three people within the household will read it at some stage. The father takes it home and reads the headlines, the news. The mother picks it up and reads how to darn a knit of wool or whatever, knit a darn of wool, and the younger members of the family will look at it for various things. So they would multiply by 3.
I usually do the Sudokus in the paper my mum gets. Yeah.
Right. Now, the local paper said that they actually tried to stop the television station from using this method, even though they use it themselves. But it's obvious that widespread, everybody multiplies approximately by 3 the number that they actually statistically get. So if you get 10 people viewing, you immediately say you've got 30, and so on. And they base it on the fact people watch the same as they read newspapers. Now, what the validity of that is, I don't know, but certainly the newspapers didn't like it. So there was a big lawsuit that.
The TV stations.
Yes.
Oh.
There. Now, of course, if you're talking about regular TV, that's easy. There is a thing called Barb, and here's Stuart now. There's a thing called Barb, and Barb does a diary system. So they've got a certain amount of accuracy from television sets that are actually on. Good morning, sir. What do you call this? This is the second morning in a row that you've turned up late.
What do you mean late? I deal with 11 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock. Can't even check the time. I'm sure other bloody failings.
Here he is,
Also,
the man of everybody's moment, is Stuart Dolby. Actually, what I'm going to do, Max, because it's interesting to see how involved you are, is I'm going to let you. I'm going to step out for 5 minutes. I'm going to let Stuart sit in this seat, and you can steer him through his energy matters, but also have a little chat to him the way you have for me for 5 minutes, and let's see what's going through his mind.
All right,
I personally think his mind is so bloody vacant, nothing is going through it.
I have to point out to you that a gentleman does never wear brown shoes with a blue.
No, actually, he shouldn't. But I actually broke the laces on my black ones.
All right.
And since I get here at 6 o'clock in the morning, I wasn't going to put the laces back.
It's not because of me. I'm surprised you got into Travelers Club for all those years.
No. Never allowed into the Travelers Club with brown shoes. No.
I don't know if my shoes are appropriate now thinking about it. I don't know. They're walking boots.
It's also to do with colour schemes, you see.
Well, actually, don't know whether you remember, but there would be a number of Lancashire poems that came out around the time of the 1930s, 1940s, and one was called Brown Boots, and that that Uncle Albert's funeral, his cousin Joe turned up in his blue suit, but in brown boots. And it was considered very non-new.
It's just not done.
No, quite.
How did you get on yesterday? Did you get quite
yes, we had a very good day yesterday. We got a lot of reaction.
How many people?
Well, we don't know in terms of numbers, but we've had stuff coming in from all over the world. I was delighted to get something from Rosie Hayes of UK. Hang on. Your News, YNK UK, who runs a newsroom, and she actually watched us, and she said, "Well done, chaps. This is a totally new type of television, and she wishes us well because it's a lot of good ideas and can be developed well." And that gave me a big lift.
I think this would be a good place on Spotify, iTunes, Apple, because this is like a podcast in a way. Podcasts are usually about hour and a half, 2 hours. People just sit and talk about current events. I think this is really a podcast as news. So I think Spotify would be quite good for that.
Well, this is your area, Max.
I think that's also
you're totally part of us now, and your remit is our distribution, if you like. So you have full authority to do whatever you want and send it out to whoever you want. Because what I do think is that what we do, and be quite serious, is in an amusing way, we actually do important things. I mean, what Stuart does is we actually josh and joke. But Stuart has been way ahead of the pack on trying to alert people to what's going to happen. You've come along and started to tell us about things with electric cars, where the legislation was only yesterday or is just being proposed, and you're able to chat. We've got a lot of informative stuff that's going on top of which is, as you've said, we're controversial. I say some outrageous things, and I expect people to react to them. So if your recommendation is that that's where we go out, watch out, people who watch out for Spotify and so on and so forth, because our expert here is going to get you confronted.
Just have to watch our lawyers. We've got private eyes with the lawyer. What was it called? Sue, grab it and run.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Are you ready,
Yeah.
Mr.
Oh, Keir Starmer hasn't nailed Boris again. Oh, what? He's a lawyer. He should have really got him on the cross by now, anyway.
I'm.
What's that holiday one? Have we already played that?
Oh, it doesn't matter. I mean, we could replay anything. The holiday one is a good one.
Try to do fresh ones.
Yes. I don't know what that one's about. Let's have. Now, let's look one for, as you say, just a few seconds.
I'll get myself some coffee tonight.
Oh, you want to go and get some coffee first? God, we treat you well. We really do.
You do?
Yeah, we
I'll
do.
pay for it. What are you talking about?
Right, okay.
Is it not a company expense?
Actually, we've got a very, when we get a moment, I've got to talk to you about something.
Okay.
About money.
Right. Always interested if it's incoming and not outgoing. Right. Did you want to go and get a coffee, did you say?
Yeah, I just got to get one.
All right. Go and do that. In the meantime, I will. Well, what we were doing is we were just reviewing the newspaper headlines. So, and this is what I like: is we get diverted by stuff that appears. The Mirror, a message to Tory MPs. What the Mirror is saying is, hey, listen, you hold this bloke to account. You make sure that any inquiry isn't blocked, etc., etc. I think we made my viewpoint which is not necessarily the viewpoint of this channel. In fact, this channel does not have a viewpoint. We like to think of free thought and free ideas coming in. But what the people are saying is that the Tory MPs should not block an inquiry into the Prime Minister's behaviour. So make up your own mind about that.
Here I am. Come here with my best Sunday best clothes on.
Right.
And all you do is abuse me.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I'm very happy to be able to abuse you. For God's sake, I've got to abuse somebody.
You see? Proper colour scheme, black shoes, black trousers, no brown shoes here.
Right. Are you going to come and sit here and are you going to do your bit, or do you want your coffee first?
No, of course.
You can drink
Come
coffee.
right.
All right.
All right. Here we are. Just while they switch around, I saw that holiday thing. Oh yes, this actually was when we took a holiday at Christmas. Would you believe? And it's just left over from it. So, but it certainly shows some of the things that we do. We're taking a break. Not a long break, but we're going to new places, getting new experiences, doing new things, getting ourselves refreshed, ready for the fray for the next 11 months of 2022. We'll be back well refreshed with a brand new persona, a brand new look. So we're only on holiday for a week, and then we'll be on top of the world. So join us in a week's time. Mirador Television. Watch us in February. Toodle pip.
There we go. Perfect timing.
Yeah, quite. Yeah.
There we go. All right, we're back.
Yeah. Hello, we're back again. Hello, I'm Stuart Dorby, the energy correspondent for Mirador Television. I'm also the editor and publisher of greenbarrel.com, a website aiming at increasing investment in renewable energy. Now, last time I spoke to you was when there was a real fear that Mr. Putin had a dominance over us with in his energy strategy. And so I want to pick up from there. What happened was that, as we now all know, that Putin does have dominance of a gas supply over Western Europe. Germany is 2/3 dependent on gas from Russia. Netherlands is 25% dependent on so on and so forth. Now, we in Britain are not dependent on Russia. We only get 6% of our gas from Russia because the rest comes from Norway, from LNG and LNG, liquefied natural gas, from Qatar in the Middle East. And the reason that we got it from Qatar is that Qatar had loaded up with LNG, but this was before fracking came along. So the Americans said, oh, we got fracking, we don't want LNG. So the Qataris needed to find new markets, and we were one of them. But although we only had a small amount of the supply, there was a global reason for a gas price, and it had been going up slowly. But when, for that day in February, Putin announced the war against Ukraine, the gas price rocketed from about 3 kilowatt hours, £3 a kilowatt hour, I think it was, to £6. Therefore, he did have a sort of dominance in a way. And this gave us sort of great squabbling, and one person called Dieter Helm, who was a professor of energy at Sussex University and a supporter to the government, and he sort of more claimed dominance over us, and he did in a way because of the price. We couldn't afford it, and therefore, and he was skeptical about whether renewable energies could meet the energy mix, and he said, if we had invested more in offshore wind, and if we had done heat fuel pumps and storage, we wouldn't be in this mess. Putin would be an irrelevance. So he's saying that if we'd only gone in for renewable energy, we wouldn't actually be dominated by Putin. Well, I dare say, this is a long stretch, I think Mr. Boris has taken a lift out of my book for his strategy document, which came out on April the 7th, which incidentally was an absolute dog's dinner. It didn't add up at all. It didn't make any sense. The contradicted a lot of which Boris has said in the South. He's very good at contradicting himself. And so we went all through it. We finally got this thing, and he said he's going to actually have renewable energy in the form of onshore wind farms, offshore wind farms, onshore wind farms, and nuclear horrors. Now, nuclear doesn't have a very good reputation in our country for very good reasons. There have been series of accidents, and back in the day, the Labour Party in the 1970s, early 1970s, used to put nuclear waste in the Atlantic. Well, that goes on and so forth. But the real thing now is he's talking about having these big, massive nuclear plants, which weren't actually operated. Hinkley Point in Somerset was the first big one to be built for 30 years. And what happened was that once Boris got onto this, well, what happened with Hinkley Point was that it was funded by EDF, which is a French company, and also the Chinese, for some reason, which I'll come to. And the cost of Hinkley Point is £18 billion. And when this went ahead, George Osborne actually bribed the Chinese with a £2 billion bung to build some more nuclear plants in Britain. And on the schedule, to their specifications, Chinese specifications. So that would be Bradwell-on-Sea in Essex, Hinkley Point, Sizewell B, I think it might be Sizewell C, yes, Sizewell C. And the other one was in the old Sellafield, was up there in the north, and I don't know what counties they are in the north, but anyway. And then the American State Department went absolutely bonkers. At that stage, Theresa May was Prime Minister, and she got a complete bollocking from the State Department. Said, how can you do this? They can send bombs and get us. So she had to can that. And now, according to Boris, which I don't believe entirely, there's another 8 of these bloody monstrosities. Now, Hinkley Point, for example, can generate 3,200 gigawatts of power, I think it is. And it costs, as I say, 18 billion to build. And a lot of that came from a government grant under a contract for difference. And I say, well, what about these small nuclear reactors? These are little small modular ones, which can produce something less than 300. I think it's 300 gigawatts, sorry. But you can do more than that. And Rolls-Royce, the first company to do small MSRs in this country, has got one, is going to have one by this is relevant by 2026. Then that by 2026 they would have one of 470 gigawatt power. So if you had, say, 6 of those, you would have the same power of Hinkley Point. And another thing about them, it is thought that using thorium rather than uranium minimizes nuclear waste. So there is a good argument for having that. But Boris then said, well, we a long time ago said we're going to have 18. No, we're going to have 7. But in his document, he didn't even mention 1. Oh, he did, 3 words. Yeah. So that is nuclear. But also, the other thing he's gone green on is offshore wind. Well, there's quite a lot of it. And the fact it's much more powerful onshore. And so he said, we're going to actually spend a lot of money getting out more. And that will mean our current output from them is 10 gigawatts. 10, yeah, but we will get 50 gigawatts, which will do about half the population of the country. Well, it won't, in fact, but anyway. So now he's into he's into offshore wind as well, without knowing too much about it. And then they said, well, we're also going to do something about onshore wind. Well, onshore wind is very controversial because it's very prone to NIMBYism. And at the moment, we have 14 gigawatts of power, and he wanted to double it. And Kwasi Kwarteng said, well, we just have to do it. But the backwoodsman of the Tory party said, no, we can't have it. So no onshore wind. So his actual, idea of what we do about energy strategy and supply is all over the flipping place. As I say, a dog's breakfast. Okay. Thanks very much for watching us. Bye.
Well, it's the end of your segment. We're still going for another, I think we've still got another half hour left, maybe.
Right, okay.
So I wanted to ask a couple of questions about what you were saying there. What do you think about nuclear power? What do you think it's a good thing? Do you think we should implement it?
Well, the argument is really it's non-carbon emitting. Yeah. So it's decided to be a renewable. Well, it's not everybody renewable if you're dependent on uranium, is it? So that's one thing. I personally, having been down a mine where nuclear waste was put in Germany, it terrifies me. I tell you, I really do, because these nuclear accidents, in fact, my man, a great campaigner, John May, has got a book, he did when he was with Greenpeace, about nuclear age. And there's a list as long as you have both arms of nuclear accidents. So, and also, you see, you've got this problem of nuclear waste. No country in the world has found a final destination for waste.
There are some small destinations for waste. One of the best and most interesting ones we have at the moment is batteries.
No, hang on a second. We're talking about nuclear waste.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, what have they got to do with it?
Well, here we go. So nuclear waste is being used for batteries, and it's fascinating. It's being used on the space station right now, up in orbit. So the nuclear waste is being put into diamond encased. So it's a tube of diamond, and it's hollow. When you put the nuclear waste inside, and you cover it in diamond, which is one of the strongest materials that we can get. Yeah. And those batteries can last for 1,000 years. And what we're doing is putting them in the space station, so we never have to replace them.
Space station being what?
Space station.
Space
station.
Yeah.
The satellites up
there.
Yeah.
So it's not around here then. It's not down.
Oh no, you can use it down there. There are.
So I will stand corrected.
But it's only a small. It's not a big. It's not something we can use en masse. Plus, it's extremely expensive.
Is, Mark, the missing link is in renewable energy is storage, and Dieter is right about that. There hasn't, and I've been writing about renewable energy and energy pricing for many years now, and I've come to the conclusion that there simply hasn't been enough investment in renewable energy to meet the energy mix. Dieter Helm says he reckons there has to be a gas bridge for 15 years. I had it in my mind it was about 10 years because the renewables are not up to the task. They are making fantastic strides in storage, as you've just described, but it's not enough.
No.
You know, it's all very well to store it for 5 or 6 hours, you know, but you need to be storing it for a week. And another thing that went wrong, this government, maybe the previous one, actually allowed British Gas, one of the main 6 suppliers, to actually close down the Rough reservoir in the North Sea. And that had 17% of our energy needs. Can you believe it?
So we're becoming less energy independent so we can rely on countries like Russia. That's ridiculous.
So we don't have to rely on Russia.
Yeah, well, no, we should. I think the best thing for us to do is to become energy independent.
Well,
so
yes,
we're exporting. We don't buy any energy.
Well, absolutely,
it's,
but you know,
it's a very easy thing to say, though.
But first of all, you've got to have the energy to do it. You can't expect, you can't. People have all got their own infestations. For example, on my website, we've got a couple of websites of vanadium batteries things, which can actually do you 24 hours. But of course, it's pretty unsightly. You've got to have 2 towers and all that kind of thing. And there are all kinds of other things going on with battery and hydrogen, for example. If you can use some green hydrogen, and you can, then that's very useful. But the storage is pretty, has a slapdash as well. But it's hydrogen. I think is the coming thing, not only just for cars, but for for heating and all other things.
Yeah. What I don't understand is why are boats not hydrogen powered? That would surely make the most sense.
Well, no, they're looking at that. They are looking at that. They are looking at that. But they can do buses and so forth because they're very good for depots. I've got it on my website called AFC, which is another thing you probably got is that the national grid cannot meet the electric points demand for cars, right? Let alone anything else. So what you can use is you can use hydrogen as a fuel.
One of the main issues with that at the moment is in the UK, we still only have less than 10 hydrogen stations in the entire country.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
So I don't know where the nearest one to here is. I would assume it's London, but I don't know. That's yeah.
But they're not
it's
enormous,
not sustainable this second.
Yeah. But did I tell you my story about the hydrogen car?
No. Yeah. I've seen a couple actually where I live, surprisingly.
What hydrogen car?
Yeah.
Well, we had a holiday home up in the Shetland Islands in a place called Unst, which is the northernmost island, and the wind blows an awful lot of time in Shetland. And the guy who had a little industrial estate, tiny one, he had 2 turbines. And when he had excessive wind, he used to siphon it off and put it in a canister, right?
Right.
He put through an electrolyzer rather, for hydrogen. Yeah. And when it didn't blow, he put it back on for the industrial estate. And he had this hydrogen car. He said, "This is the first license. This is 10 years ago, hydrogen car." And he said, "Would you like to drive it?" I said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, how far would it get me?" He said, "It gets you to Lerwick, which is 50 miles away." I said, "Well, how will I get back?" And he says, "That's the problem." It's a chicken and egg situation. There weren't any hydrogen cars because there was no fueling stations. There are no fueling stations because there weren't hydrogen cars around. And it was really quite a weird situation.
Hang on a moment. Keith, did you just break your phone?
I just dropped the phone. That's what smacked in the background. And I was just keeping an eye on the two of you. You can chat for 2 more minutes if you like.
Okay, well, the other thing, do you know the difference between green hydrogen and blue hydrogen? Right. Green hydrogen is energy derived from pure renewable energy. Blue hydrogen, you've got a steaming of methane factor which leaves you with about 25% green and the rest blue. It's called blue, right? So it is polluted, if you see what I mean.
Right.
And there's also brown hydrogen, which you get from coal, and grey one, which is doesn't have carbon capture and storage, whereas blue carbon does. And they actually can steam heat it to get the methane down, basically. Yeah, so it's all terribly interesting. Yeah. I didn't know about your waste matter in the diamond case. That sounds a bit dodgy when your fiancé turns up.
It can be used in phones. It's in test. Yeah. It's being tested right now. It works. The battery lasts for 1,000 years, which is fascinating in itself. So yeah, I mean.
Well, the stuff I went in Dynamite in Aster in Gorleben in Germany, they reckon that there was because it was a salt mine, I think, originally, and some of the stuff had got out, and it said that the biosphere will be affected for 900 years, but if it's sort of it could be millions of years if the bloody gas gets out and it's really difficult. Yeah, so it's but hydrogen's really big because you can store it in the North Sea. When you got as the oil gas depletes, you got empty caverns basically, and you could store hydrogen there, and that would actually. I don't think we could fuel the whole economy on hydrogen because it wouldn't work. You'd run out of it or something like that. But it's.
I wanted to speak to you about this briefly. I said something fairly controversial earlier, and I wanted to hear your opinion on it. I said, I think one of the things we could do is actually bring back the coal plants and the coal mines.
Well, you might get your wish. You might get your wish. Last year, in June, the wind didn't blow. So Boris went up to Drax, who had 6 coal mines, and they said, we're going green. And 4 of them are now derived from wood pellets. But they're not green because the wood pellets are made in the bloody States. So getting them over there is a bloody great carbon footprint for starters. Apart from which, wood pellets are carbon. They're actually come from trees, and they, as you know, trees taking carbon and emit oxygen.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that issue actually with the wind turbines. Sometimes it just doesn't. It's not windy. No. Same with the issues with solar power.
You've always had intermittency, which is the necessity for storage. The wind doesn't blow all the time. The sun doesn't shine all the time, and that is really something that people have managed to cope with because the intermittency thing brings on all kinds of troubles, doesn't it? Really, that if the wind doesn't shine, you've got to go to. And also, Mr. Gove now has decided if there's going to be an opening of in Whitehaven of a coal mine, isn't it? I think it's a coking mine.
The controversial opinion on that is what I said earlier. We should reopen the coal mines because we still use coal. We buy coal from other countries. What we did is we sold our coal power plants to places like China.
Well, we didn't sell them. They were much cheaper. A lot came from China. They're much cheaper in China, and they're much cheaper at various other places.
Why is that?
Because why are they cheaper? Slave labour. Yeah. Slave labour. Yeah. But also, what you got to understand is that their destination of no coal power by 2022 was never going to be met because of this intermittency thing. And now, Mr. Gove has got to decide whether he's going to allow this Whitehaven one to go on. And then what are their credentials for climate change and renewable energy if they're going to allow this to go on? And if they're going to build 8 bloody massive great nuclear plants, which are going to start emitting.
Okay, I think
the strategy is not a strategy at all. It's a bundle of nonsense, really.
I think we're going to go soon, but one thing I wanted to touch on before we end the show was the coal power plants. If we bring them back, we have our own. Bringing back the coal power plants, hear me out, is actually better for the environment. Here's why. If we bring the coal power plants back to this country and we do it, instead of India and China doing it, we have so many regulations, so much bureaucracy. China and India has none. If we bring it over here, we can mine coal.
Yeah. Gets the coal from Australia, mate. Plenty of load.
We get most of it from...
No, China gets its coal from Australia. They're fantastic deals goes on.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Where do we get our coal from then? Because I was under the impression most of it comes from China and India.
Well, I don't know about China and India. No, I don't. Maybe it does. Yeah. I wouldn't know that. I just know that well, for example, all of our coal mines are closed down now, aren't they?
Yeah, we just recently closed the last one less than a year ago, I think.
Well, that's because the awful Margaret Thatcher wanted to waste industry, and therefore she said, "Now that we got all the energy from gas and from the North Sea, we don't need coal." Well, the coal is, very carbon emitting. There's no way around that. So if you advocate that, do you? But apparently, there are processes that can be done which sort of get the carbon right down.
Yeah,
like thorium in SMR is much weaker than uranium, that kind of thing. So it's a diminutive of uranium.
One of the things that the climate change activists don't account for is innovation. I think that there are so many things that we can do that's really going to help in the future. One of them is carbon capture. We can take carbon from the atmosphere and turn it into graphene. Yeah. We can capture so much.
Do you know about? Shall I tell you about carbon capture and storage? Okay. Back in the day, when there was I think it's coalition argument, Drax power station went for a prize that Chris Huhn, then not George Osborne, of £1 billion Drax if they could get a carbon and capture storage thing. And they couldn't, and they cancelled the whole thing. Carbon capture and storage has been around since Lenin, but nobody has been able to do it since it's so expensive to make. That is the problem.
There are a lot of new innovations coming through, though. Over time, these things will get much easier to do, and hopefully everything will get a lot better in terms of the climate. I really do think that.
Okay, chaps, it's 11:28. You had some good debate here, and that's what Mirador is all about with this new format, is to get good debate going, and I hope that you'll join in that debate. We're here 5 days a week from 9:30 till 11:30. Our experts and our reporters will be dropping by and will be tapping in. This is our second morning, and I think that we've had some good, solid input this morning. We will be bringing you some entertainment as well, but it takes time to introduce all this stuff. First of all, who needs entertainment when you've got Stuart Dolby around? Thanks to Max for being involved this morning. And we are about to say goodbye. Are you able, Max, to tap into something that will say, can you see us out, or do you want me to do it?
Oh, what, one of these, or just...
Yeah, one of those.
It's the outro.
I think you need to make sure that it's in the... Yeah, that's it. It needs to be under the video clips.
Outro, there we go. All right. Just say anything before we go?
Yes, indeed. Cheerio. Say cheerio.
Cheerio, everyone.
We will be back tomorrow morning at 8:30 for Break an Egg. And at 9:30, we return again. And there's no sense in us saying who will be here. It's with whomsoever. And those people who drop by, those people who are interested in coming in, those people who will contribute via the power of streaming. And we've had 2 good mornings. We've started to establish some sort of pattern, and I hope that you will join us, if not on a daily basis. Know that we're here for you to tap into and get views and news and items and a variety of stuff from a variety of people. Till tomorrow, toodle pip.